It's Tuesday, January the 14th, 2014. 114, 114. Oh, 114. All right, whatever. Anyway, this is the show with no name. I'm Bob Going with Jim Nikosha. Gavin couldn't make it today. It's not that he's afraid or anything. It's just, occasionally we have other things we have to do on Tuesday mornings.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Nurse ourselves.
Are you on? Are you on?
I don't know.
Okay, you're good.
Yes, okay,
all right,
there we
very
go.
Good. Okay, we want to start off by wishing a very happy birthday to my son James, currently hiding out in Vancouver, British Columbia. Happy birthday, Jamie.
Happy birthday, Jamie.
It's also Paul Antonelli's birthday at the Recorder. The sports editor, runs fantastic sports pages at the Recorder. Happy birthday, Paul Antonelli.
Happy birthday, Paul.
And it's also Ann Picconi's birthday today, the curator, director of the Walter Elwood Museum. So happy birthday to Ann Picconi as well.
Happy birthday, Ann. That's all the important people in town.
Well,
Well, except for me. Mine isn't yet, so.
Yeah, well, anyway, that's a pretty good selection.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Recorder, let's see, some news last night or this morning. I'm not sure when I read it. Heather Nellis is taking over an editor's position.
Oh, I didn't read
at
that.
the Recorder. Congratulations to Heather, outstanding reporter.
Definitely. Yes.
You sometimes hate to see the good reporters move up but she's earned it. She's earned it, and
no, she'll train somebody else. That's it.
Right, and she can. That's right. She can look over their work and teach the new reporter to be as good as she is.
That's right.
And, of course, we failed to mention, because we get tied up with other stuff, our friend Charlie Crable left the Recorder in December and has begun work at the Saratogian, of all places, Saratoga. So good luck, Charlie, on your new adventure up there.
That sounds like a good bet, Saratoga. You didn't get that. You did. You're just going to ignore it. Okay.
Sometimes being deaf is really comes in handy. I guess we should say hello to my daughter Louisa out in, let's see, what time of day is it? Oh, she'll be in Concord now at work. Happy day, Louisa. Happy your brother's birthday.
Yes, that's got to be a good day for her.
Sometime last week after our show, I forget which day it was now, but we lost a good friend and colleague, Lloyd Smith.
Yes. Yes.
And you can't begin to say enough about Lloyd. I was trying to think how long he was on the air at this station. It was close to 40 years, if not 40.
That's what I believe. Yeah.
And what makes me really feel old is I was at this station before he was.
Is that right?
Yeah, I was.
Wow.
I was a high school weekend disc jockey, when Lloyd came to work for the station.
Well, that's interesting.
And he was chief engineer for one or two other stations that were owned by Community Broadcasting Corp back in those days. And so they put him on the morning show, made him chief engineer, and all that stuff. I think, as I recall, I'm pretty positive about this. He got an extra $10 a week in his paycheck for taking out the garbage. You think things are tight now? They were really tight.
Yeah,
tight back then. I think I was making $1.08 an hour or something like that. Yeah.
You were lucky.
Well, it was whatever the minimum wage was. Yeah. That's what I was.
My first job out of high school was 40 cents an hour.
Wow. Yeah, but that's when the Mohawks still ruled the valley. Yeah. Hey, Jim, do you think you could tilt that camera up a little bit because it's cockeyed? Hang on, folks. No, that's it. You got it.
There you go.
All right. We're videoing the show. We had so many hits on the show with Philip Tambasco that I thought we'd give it a shot. And,
good idea.
Try it again.
The only thing is that people see how ugly we are, and they may not want to watch it anymore.
We'll see. We'll see if there's more or less than there were the last time. I'm still getting feedback from that program. Philip will be coming back, let's see, what's today's? In 2 weeks, on the 28th. Philip will be back talking about all things Amsterdam, past, present, and future, I guess.
I've been reading some of his blog or whatever you want to call it,
well,
and his questions
his
about
Facebook page.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
It is. It is. You know, you're from Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Is the Facebook page. It's my invitation. It's a closed thing, but if you ask for an invitation, he'll probably grant it because he likes people participating. And good feedback coming in, and some interesting questions. He occasionally stumps me. I've got a copy. I'll bring it when he comes next time, of Hugh Donlan's Annals of Milltown for him, because that'll give him enough material to go on.
I don't think I read that book. That's one of the local books that I haven't read. That
I guess it's still in print, or you can get it at the library. Somebody said. Trying to think when it was. Jeepers, early '80s maybe he came out with that. We had not been married long. It had to have been in the '70s, because I remember my father-in-law reading the book, and he died in 1980. So, so somewhere around there, '79 maybe. Excellent book. If you want to know all the facts, they're laid right out there. Yeah. And of course, for Hugh Donlan, it wasn't history. It was just this is what I remember. That's right. I was telling somebody yesterday, and I think I may have mentioned it in my book. The man was a walking time machine. You ask him about some long forgotten mayor or something like that, and he would give you every detail and what happened at this common council meeting, and you know.
I've got one of the books that the city printed about the common council meetings for the early 1900s, and I forgot where I put it, and I got to look for it so we can bring it in. And
well, we got a complete set at the Walter Elwood Museum and numerous duplicates. We got a couple of calls here. I got a lot of stuff I want to talk about today, but that's all right. We'll take some calls. This is WCSS. You're on the air.
Good morning, Jim and Bob. How you doing?
Good.
Now, in November, I got a flu shot. Now, I think I'm worse off now than before having the flu shot.
It's going around. That's actually where Gavin is today. I didn't want to mention it, but as long as you brought up the flu, that's where he is. Yeah.
I had the start of it Friday, but I worked out of it.
Isn't flu shot supposed to help you to
It's their best guess, Chet. They have to decide a year in advance what strain of flu they think will be coming, starting in Asia and swinging around the world. So each year they make their best guess. Their best guess isn't always the best. They put in a combination of different strains of vaccine, and hopefully it works, but it doesn't always.
Okay. Well, you got to pay for that shot. Now, another thing is, being the fact we got the new council, and evidently the mayor will propose a budget, and then the council can either approve it or make changes. Probably go back to the mayor, then come back or whatever. So
Right.
like this,
Right.
how do you think that's going to play out this year? Because I don't want my user fees going up. They keep on going up.
Well,
and we're wasting a lot of money. This council better.
As a matter of fact, I read that local law last night, actually for the first time. It was kind of snuck through, and it was sold on the basis we're returning it to the way it was before. Well, they're not returning it to the way it was before. They took the Corporation Counsel in drafting the law, made some substantive changes in the powers of the controller that were not there before, and he also took out a reform that was put in the mid-1980s dealing with the mayor's veto and the overriding of the veto. It didn't make much difference until we went to a 5-person council. But the way the law now reads, which is not the way it was, say, when John Duchesne was mayor, the way the law now reads is the mayor proposes the budget. First of all, if nothing else happens, that budget becomes the law. Okay? The Common Council can make changes, they can make increases, they can make decreases, both in revenues and expenditures, return it to the mayor, and she can line item veto those matters if she chooses. Now, here's where the problem is. If the mayor wants to raise a budget expenditure, right? And the Common Council says no, and wants to raise a tax, and the Common Council says no, and she vetoes it, they need a 4/5 vote to override the veto. So the mayor can actually raise your taxes, raise the expenditures with only 2 supporters on the Common Council, as opposed to even a majority. So that was corrected in the mid-1980s, and that it was cleverly snuck back out of the current local law. The other
the way you interpret things when you were corporation counsel overall is differently than our current corporation counsel, because the way I look at things with 4 votes, that's what I tried to be a little humorous last week with the cheese doodles. When you get 4 people and they listen to their constituents, and they stay together, meaning the Republicans, the 4 Republicans, the mayor can't override 4 votes, and it's like you can go to the meetings or so, and she can just sit there for the next 2 years. Is that correct?
That's, obviously there will be shifting majorities on different matters depending on what it is. But yes, that's basically true. Now, she's asserting through her corporation counsel rights that she does not have with respect to, even if the council overrides her veto, she says she's not going to do it anyway. I'll have more to say on that in detail later in the program. I've prepared something on that. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Chet.
All right, bye.
Take care. This is WCSS. You're on the air. Hello? Hello, you're on the air. You want to be on the air? Okay, then. All right. What were we talking about?
Before Chet called or after Chet?
Before Chet called. I know what we were talking about when Chet called. We were talking about Philip.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not enough his mother and father tell me to be light on him, and both sets of grandparents, and his cousin in Florida. But I run into his great aunt in the supermarket the other day. You be nice to my nephew now. Don't you? Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. It's not like we were mean to him.
No. When you've got that many relatives.
Well, that's true.
You've got to be careful.
Well, if you want the ratings to go up, put Philip Tambasco on. I'll tell you. So we're going to do it again.
You don't know how well connected the relatives are. They're from all over New York and New Jersey, and so.
What are you saying?
Nothing. Well. Nothing. People just come up in droves and they'll take over the radio station.
Wow. Anyway, after our last program, later that same evening,
okay,
January 7, 2014, the Corporation Counsel, Mr. DeCasatis, issued an opinion, a legal opinion, to the Common Council. Well, to the mayor and the Common Council, but I'm sure the mayor already knew what his opinion was. It's whatever the mayor wanted. The question is, may the mayor refuse to execute a contract after being authorized by resolution to execute the contract? Second question, may the mayor refuse to execute a lease to a restaurant concession? Number 3, may the mayor refuse to execute a contract hiring a golf professional under terms similar to the existing golf professional contract? All right. So there are a couple of different ways, different corporation councils approach things in different manners. I would generally start off by looking at the law, seeing what it said, and interpreting what it means, and looking at various court cases. And other corporation councils start it differently. They start out knowing where they want to end up, and trying to figure out a way to get there. Both means are used by lawyers in different situations. I think if you're the corporation counsel for the city, you are the advisor not only to the mayor but to the Common Council as well,
right.
and you really owe them your best legal thought on these matters, even if it disagrees with the person who appointed you. Now, this is not always a wise decision, because I got myself in some hot water with the guy who appointed me, because I would sometimes come up with, well, no, you can't do that. No, but, Jerry knows who appoints him, and then he may have more sense than I had. I mean, there was a time.
He got a lot more money than you got.
Yeah, that's true. There was a time in the last administration when he, in order to issue an opinion favorable to one of the mayor's friends, he interpreted the zoning law to say that a detached garage is a dwelling. If we analogize that to a dwelling, this works. Well, he does pretty much the same thing in this thing. Okay. Now, I'm not going to read his whole decision, but I'm going to comment on it because there are some things that just kind of blow it apart when you read it carefully in his own decision. Background. The organization of government in the City of Amsterdam is established by the city charter. This charter is unique to the City of Amsterdam. It does not appear that any judicial interpretation of any provision of the charter has occurred since its adoption by referendum in 1978. Not quite true. I mean, Anthony Baldine went to court on numerous occasions with Mayor Villa over interpretations of that, but that's okay. The general city laws, a grant of various powers to the city. The exercise of those powers is to be regulated by a charter or other appropriate enactment. Okay, so now he discusses the following relevant sections. Section C23, Common Council. Now, pay close attention to this. Well, first of all legislative powers of the city shall be vested in a common council except as otherwise provided by charter or by law. Common council consists of the mayor as the presiding officer and the 5 aldermen. Powers and duties, C29. Listen to this now.
Okay.
In addition to other powers and duties conferred or imposed upon the Common Council by this charter or by law, the council shall have, but not be limited to, the following powers. I'm not going to enumerate them, but this is a critical difference between the powers of the mayor and the powers of the Common Council. Under a Republican form of government, the legislature is presumed to contain all the sovereignty of the state, unless otherwise stated. And for example, under powers and duties of the mayor, which he quotes later, in addition to other powers and duties and responsibilities assigned to the mayor by this charter or by law, the mayor shall have the following powers and duties.
Shall have.
But not, doesn't say anything but not limited to. In other words, the mayor has only the powers that are set forth in the charter. The Common Council has all the other powers. Now, he makes, in arriving at his conclusion, he turns that on its head and makes it say something completely different. All right. Now, here's where it gets fun. Where does he put this? Oh, yeah. Under the powers of the Common Council, Section F. This is the way he words it: to award all public bracket work, close bracket, contracts subject to applicable law. And there's a footnote next to the bracket. I think he meant to say works. In other words, he's adding something to what the charter says that's not in the charter. That's the word works. Okay? All right. So there's a footnote at the bottom. The word works, this is Jerry's statement, the word works appears to have been dropped inadvertently in the codification process.
Oh, really?
The original text of the charter reads, quote, public works contracts, unquote. Okay. He hangs his whole decision on a word that does not appear in the charter, works. Because then he goes on to make a distinction between public contracts and public works contracts.
It inadvertently dropped.
Inadvertently dropped. Okay. All right. So I went. Well, first of all, I knew the answer to this, but I went to the charter last night, the official code as published by the Department of State, and it indeed says public contracts, not public works contracts. And there's also a little thing at the bottom said that this section was amended by local law number whatever of 1986. All right, and that was actually the last piece of my puzzle. The reason I know that it says what it says, because it means to say what it says, is that I was chairman of the Charter Commission in 1983 that brought this issue up. We determined that it was an inadvertent problem with the 1978 charter. That up until that point, the Common Council had never been limited as far as approving contracts. I had to approve all city contracts, as far as I know, since the time there was a city, and certainly since the 1911.
Yes.
From 1911 to 1978, when the modern charter was adopted. 1911 charter was I'm referring to as the modern charter, and then the 78 charter came in. In addition, regardless of which, because of that open clause at the beginning, the Common Council is not limited to this power just because they say to award public works contracts. That means they can't approve of the other contracts. Yeah. All right, that's a different issue altogether. But in any event, we debated this at length and said, no, the Common Council has to approve all the contracts. You can't have just have the mayor or the controller or department heads making contracts on behalf of the city without the approval of the Common Council. Exactly. It cannot be done. It should not be done. The power always resides in the Common Council to do those things. Sometimes the Common, in practical matters, the Common Council passes off some of this power, but they have the right to take it back anytime they want. For example, in budgetary matters, you're not going to require a vote of the Common Council every time a department head goes to Conovers to buy a ream of paper. You set limits on what you allow the department heads and the mayor to spend within the allotted budget without it having to go directly through you before they make the purchase. Right? Okay. So, in any event, my recollection being refreshed after last night's research, we put 4 different propositions on the ballot in 1982. Okay? Did I say 83 before? It was 82. The 1982 charter. I was chairman. Among the people on that were Joe Zavisha, who was a great uncle of our current county administrator, Matt Ossenfort. Dick Armstrong from First Albany Corporation. Noted presidential historian David Petrucia was on that. Vito D'Andriano, former alderman and supervisor, was on that. Michael Charles McKenney, a frequent caller to our program, was on that. Francis Archambault, a concerned citizen who came to many meetings, he was on that commission. Doug Berge, who later became city planner for Rensselaer, among other things. Now works for the state. So, it was a pretty solid commission. And anyway, we put 4 things on the ballot in 1982, and my recollection is we included this one in a hodgepodge amendment that we called technical amendments. We failed to sell that properly because it was hard to do. You couldn't put 20 different propositions on the ballot. We tried to put what we thought was uncontroversial in one, but people don't trust stuff that's called technical amendments. Let me see what's in. Let me know what's in there, buddy. Well, it's one of the. I was 31. I learned a few things since then. So I think it went down when it was voted on. Now, in 1985, noted presidential historian David Petrucia is elected alderman of the 4th Ward, takes office in January 1986. And over the course of his 2-year term, he took a great number of those technical amendments that had been bunched together and separated them. And every couple of months, he would introduce one in the Common Council. They would vote on it. It would pass, and eventually, all these things became law. And here's it says amended 1/21/1986. That was like the first thing he did. He introduced that on the first meeting of the year in 1986. It became law on January 21st. Local law number 1, 1986. Okay. So that's how it says public contract. So the rest of his argument here is garbage.
Right.
And in fact, because it says what it says and it means what it says, he actually makes the case for me that the mayor has to sign these contracts if they override her veto. There is a special grant of, he says there's a special grant of authority to award public works contracts given to the Common Council by that section. This section applies to contracts governed by general municipal law where formal bids specifications are issued and bids are received. Well, that's kind of a broad conclusion. I think he's got nothing to base that on. Then he says a restaurant concession has been held not to be a public work contract since there's no expenditure of public funds. Well, okay. Irrelevant. It's not. It doesn't say public works conference.
You know, just as a side note into this, the first time I went on the council, we had to go to a NICOM meeting where they were introducing the new aldermen and new mayors.
Right.
And we went
Conference of Mayors.
Yes, we went to the one meeting because they had many, and one was on law. And the first thing that the speaker said, an individual cannot enter into a contract with someone without the express resolution or permission from the council. And somebody asks, well, what can't the mayor do this? He says, no. If the mayor does this, she is held strictly responsible to pay that price.
Yeah. All right. So here, in cases where, so his conclusion is Charter C-29F does not apply to either of these contracts, meaning the pro or the concessionaire. Yeah, because it says public works instead of.
It doesn't say public works.
Well, because he thinks it should say public works.
Oh.
It doesn't apply because it should say something other than what it says.
I see.
That's his legal opinion. It's the best he's got. He had to go with it. It is the best he's got. All right. So then he goes on to say, in cases where Charter C-29F does apply, the mayor's signature on the contract is a ministerial act. A public official can be compelled to complete a ministerial act, but not an act that involves discretion. In such a situation, the mayor could not refuse to sign a lawfully awarded public works contract, he says, again, adding the word that doesn't exist. All right. Wow.
Isn't there someone somewhere in our charter that says that the council can hire an outside attorney if they don't agree with the corporation council?
No.
There isn't?
No.
I thought.
No, I mean, they have the power to hire whoever they want to advise them, but they can't get rid of the corporation council.
Oh, no, I'm not saying get rid of them.
On the other hand, there is the provision that was added a few years ago that says if the mayor fails to fill a position required by the charter, then the Common Council after 90 days can appoint whoever they want. Well, the 90 days ran up like March 30th of last year. So Jerry's name was put up before Common Council, not last year, 2 years ago.
2 years
ago. 2 years ago. Jerry's name was put up and defeated by the Common Council, right? And the mayor did not subsequently appoint him or anybody attempt to appoint him.
She reappointed him.
Well, no, she said she was going to do that. She never did that.
Okay. All right.
And nor could she, because you cannot.
After the 90 days.
By the rules of the Common Council, and I think of the charter as well in this situation, you cannot reinstitute a resolution that has been defeated unless you're one of the people who voted the other way.
Yeah.
right? In other
Yes.
words, if you voted no and you now change your mind and want to vote yes, then yeah, you can reintroduce that, but not
Not the other way.
not the other way around. So, by the way, this is WCSS 1490 in Amsterdam, New York, and you're listening to the show with no name. I'm Bob Going with Jim Nikosha. Okay. So, I don't know. He goes on to about the golf professional, saying only the mayor has the authority to negotiate and grant leases, concessions, licenses, and permits for the use of city property and appurtenances. Well, it doesn't say that. It's well, it does say it has to be approved by the Common Council. But he leaves out again. He leaves out the phrase at the beginning, which is subject to. Well, let me go back. It's, the mayor. Oh yeah. When he's doing the analysis, he leaves off the first part of that sentence, which is this is the mayor's powers on approval by the Common Council to negotiate and grant leases, concessions, license, and permits for use of city property and appurtenances. In other words, if the Common Council says, "Go ahead, negotiate this stuff," but that's at the beginning, on approval by the Common Council. In other words, before she starts to negotiate. So the whole thing is nonsense. Then he goes on to say that strip away the carts and the pro shop, and it's really an employment contract, and only the mayor has the power over employment contract. Well, it is not an employment contract. How many times have they said, Joe Morendo, you're not an employee of the city. You're not entitled to any of the benefits of a city employee. We don't pay into your retirement system. We don't pay your medical. We don't pay you nothing other than this contract. I made the point on one of the web pages that it's it's identical to you hire somebody to take away the city's recyclables, right?
Yeah,
they're not employees of the city. That's a contractual arrangement. They're contracted people. They're not employees. Mike Perillo does the city
the alarms,
city alarms and signals and light signals, right?
Yes.
He's not an employee of the city. At least he wasn't the last I looked. He was hired under contract.
He was an independent contractor.
Independent contractor. So the mayor, only has the authority to see that contracts are enforced, insofar as it's her duty, and actually that duty is given to the Golf Commission under the city code. So by the Common Council. So.
How much?
It's all nonsense.
How much power does the Golf Commission have?
A lot, according to the ordinance that created it.
But if that's the fact, then they're opposed. If I'm not mistaken, they're opposed to the contract with Joe Morendo, aren't they?
But the Common Council has the ultimate authority. That's what I'm saying.
All right, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah. Also, I looked at, oddly enough, the golf course ordinance, which also I think was part of that miscellaneous things, because it got left out of the '78 charter. You know why? Because they copied the Gloversville's charter, and Gloversville didn't have a golf course, so there was no section on the golf course.
I see.
Okay. So anyway, for several years there was no authority for a golf commission or a golf course in the charter or the code. So that was put in. That was put in and codified. Interestingly, it doesn't say in there who makes the appointments to the golf commission. But if you read it in conjunction with everything else, then you say, well, if it doesn't say otherwise, then the mayor makes the appointments, which is the way it's always been. There is a section of the charter that says anybody who's appointed to any position who lives outside the city limits has to be approved by the Common Council. Regardless of the issue of whether a person is automatically excluded because they live outside the city, and of course we've had that case with like city engineers and such. over the years. I don't know about the current guy, but over the years, the issue has been: are they allowed to live outside the city? Are firemen allowed to live outside? Are someone, are controller's office employees allowed to live outside the city? And that's gone back and forth and blah blah blah. But it specifically says, with respect to officers that are created by the city, which would include the Golf Commission, if they live outside the city, they cannot take office unless they have been approved by the Common Council, and unless the Common Council specifically says, yes, these people can be there. So although the mayor has the sole authority, I think, to appoint the Golf Commission, she does not have the authority to appoint anyone who doesn't live in the city unless the Common Council approves, which they have not. So that takes care of the issue of two of the people, and I think including the chairman. Well, how do you like that? I solved all that by 10:37:48. So,
20 minutes.
All right.
A 20-minute deal, and everything is settled.
Wow.
If you want to change into another subject, I heard partial Dave Davis on this morning on the other talk show.
The one preceding us?
The one preceding us.
What's the name of that show?
Bob and Mike, or Mike and Joe, or I don't know.
Which Mike? Is it Mike or Rick?
I'm just kidding. It's Sam and Mike.
Sam and Mike. Is that what it's called? Is that called Sam and Mike, or do they call it something else? I never tune it in at the beginning where they would announce the name of the show. What do they call it?
I don't know.
It says Mike and Sam's theme song up there. Well, that could be. That's kind of informal.
That could be.
I don't know.
And I didn't listen to it all because he's such a
former alderman.
Well, yeah, but I'm trying to think of a word to describe him and his manner of speaking. And
I'm sure there's a word in Yiddish. I'll check with Paul Wollman afterwards.
And another case where we didn't know this, we didn't know that, we didn't know the other thing, and all they had to do is ask people who were in power prior to this administration.
Right.
But they chose not to because they were instrumental in getting them out of office.
Right.
So,
for example, we were talking off the air when this was going on. You're talking about the overlay, which has to do with the school taxes that weren't collected by the school district that the city is then responsible for, and how that's calculated and how it's figured into the budget and all that. And I said, well, the only person I know who always knew the answer to that was Mike Chiara.
Yes.
And would Mike Chiara ever turn down a request for help, even if it came from his worst enemy?
No, never. No. He may not go into City Hall to do it. He may do it.
Right. May do it in his garage,
or at the coffee shop, but he won't go into City Hall. And
if it was his worst enemy, Mike Chiara would give his best answer to the question.
Yes, I believe so. So half of the things that we're hearing are strictly not true, or hyperbole. Is that
hyperbole?
Hyperbole.
It's spelled hyperbole, but it's pronounced hyperbole.
Okay.
Emphasis on the per. Hyperbole.
And the mayor was on yesterday. Again, I didn't listen to the whole thing.
By the way, the definition of hyperbole is exaggeration for the sake of emphasis. In other words, you go over the top, but you're making a point.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The mayor was on yesterday, and again, I didn't hear the whole show, but I never once heard her say, "Yeah, we did this wrong, or we did that wrong, or we should have done this."
Nothing was done wrong.
It's always it's like Obama. It was always the last administration.
Right.
She had nothing to do with anything except she's been there for 6 years, and nothing has changed.
Yeah. Wow.
So, I don't know.
I was talking with Chet. I was discussing some of the things I found in that local law that was passed by the voters, thinking they were going back to the old system. And for the most part, it is the old system. But I indicated the one thing. But there are several other things as well. For example, the charter gives the city controller broad powers in several respects. One is in purchasing. All purchasing is supposed to be done through the city controller's office. The second thing is that the city controller is supposed to keep an inventory of all city property and keep it updated.
You know, is that in the charter?
Yeah.
When my last year on the council, they stopped inventorying for the city.
Yeah.
And I went down there and I went through the roof. I said, I can't believe you're. And the answer was, if it didn't cost over $500, we're not going to inventory it. But they didn't inventory anything. At one time, they had in one department they had 7 copy machines.
Yeah.
And it was only 1 floor and a half, not even 1 floor and a half of a building. It was 2 half a floors to the building. They had 7 copy machines.
Well, sometimes they're necessary, sometimes they're not, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But the fact of the matter is that there was no system in place to get rid of the old stuff, trade it in for new stuff, put it on eBay or whatever. We did put in remember we put in that eBay resolution?
Yes.
Allowing the controller to do that, and I don't know if they ever followed through on that afterwards. But
I don't know.
But I think we got rid of some used golf course equipment that way, or at least we tried to. But I can see where Jerry was going with this when he snuck these things in, because basically those were things that were supposed to be done by the controller, but rarely were. So he was conforming the charter to the practice. Now, originally, how those things ended up in the controller's office is, when they put the 78 charter together, they were eliminating a lot of positions, and they eliminated the commissioner system, the commissioner of public safety, the commissioner of public works.
Yeah.
All right? And we also had a city administrator who handled the day-to-day operations of the city, who handled purchasing, who handled approving whether you're getting a new rug in your office or you're not getting a new rug in your office. Those things were not handled by the mayor routinely. They were handled by the city administrator. Okay? So they decided they wanted to get rid of all these positions, so they gave all the city administrators' duties to the controller. So the controller, which formerly was primarily the treasurer had all these auditing and taxing functions and all that, and they added all these administrative functions that used to belong to the city administrator. Now, in practice, here's what happens. Simultaneously with the adoption of the charter, a new administration comes in. John Gomulka had been there for 12 years. Joe Fasella was the city administrator for most of that, or a good chunk of it. Mario Villa comes in, and Joe Fasella is no longer the city administrator, but they make him the city purchasing agent. And he does exactly the same functions that he had previously done as city administrator. Okay? Which were, in other words, this is the only way we know how to do it. There's the guy who knows how to do it. We're keeping him there. We're going to call him something else and give him a raise. And so the city administrator became like the highest paid person in the controller's office. Well, after Joe left, all of a sudden we had a string of nominal purchasing agents, and in many of the departments, the department heads continued to do the purchasing, and it stopped going through the controller's office, and the whole thing deteriorated. So there we are. This is WCSS. You're on the air.
I'm sorry, I called back because the name of the show, the prior show, is called Sound Off. But when Jim is talking, he, as well as Alderman, they interpret the charter one way themselves. So when the former fourth ward alderman called up, and he can be kind of angered. I think that certain people think that it's either our way or the highway. And you mentioned, Jim, you mentioned about the mayor, and she feels that she's constantly right, and you don't disagree with the mayor. So in other words,
why not?
One of the things that's crazy about the charter, you actually had more people vote against her than supported her, yet she still has this job. Now, they don't have recall in New York State, but they could maybe change that charter where it says you got to get like maybe 51% of the vote or so like that. That's pretty crazy to go out and vote and you can keep a job when the majority of people don't even want you in office.
Yeah, but you got to remember, Chet, that
they don't want anybody else either.
Yeah, they may not like the person who they voted for, but they don't like the guy they didn't vote for more. So it's a thing where I'm not going to vote for so and so.
It was a fun, and that was a funny situation because it really, on paper, it was a two-person race. But Bill Wills ran a write-in campaign, right?
Yes.
So he doesn't even count toward the percentages. So you can, she got a majority of the people on of the ballot. However, it was like 16.5% of the total registered voters of the city, as it turns out.
Well, all these people that thought they were going to go out and vote, and then they said, "The heck with it," and then look what we got. I really don't know.
No, we get the government.
Republican Party is going to come forward, say 2 years down the road. But I mean, I still think it's just, the mayor. I can remember when Paul Perillo was mayor. He may not have agreed with the council and stuff, and maybe fought with them. But when a decision was made, 3-2 or so, he went by it because you are listening. They're supposed to listen to their constituents, right. And as long as you do that the mayor, we pay the mayor's salary, we pay Jerry's salary. We are the boss of the aldermen. We pay their salary, and they got to start listening to us. And it's ridiculous that you can get a group of people, city, county, and school district, small group, and they make the decision what I pay in taxes and telling me what I can afford living in this city, and it's ridiculous.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, Chet.
This is WCSS. You're on the air. Hello. All right. That's a phantom phone line. Line 2.
Yeah, must be.
Yeah.
Must be.
Well, I mean, Chet's got nobody to blame for himself. After all, he ran a write-in campaign too, didn't he?
That's right.
That's
yes,
right.
He did.
Don't blame me. I voted for me.
And if I'm not,
that's right. You can't blame Chet.
I think he supported the mayor at one point.
Well,
didn't he?
Perhaps. I don't know.
That's neither here.
Yeah, we all
there.
gave her some support at one time or another.
Yes,
some support or other. Certainly, when she took office, we all offered her all the help we could give her.
Yes. I
spent a couple hours with her myself.
So did I. Met her at a coffee shop, and we discussed some things at City Hall. But I think it was just a show because not one thing I suggested has ever taken place.
Well.
Which is okay.
But at least she was listening to everybody,
Yeah.
and I give her credit for that.
Yeah.
But she's not a monarch. I don't know. Is this a Milltown mentality or something that you think that the boss is the boss and that's it? When you're not in the building, the boss is not your boss. He's just the guy who lives down the street.
Right.
Yeah. And it's the same. We are a republic, and we have a Republican form of government. We do not have elected monarchs. There's a history. Poland used to have elected monarchs. The great King John Sobieski, who saved Christendom from the Muslim hordes, the Battle of Vienna, was an elected monarch. He didn't inherit the kingdom from his father. He was granted the kingdom by the
people,
by the Polish legislature. But he had the powers of a monarch. Well, we don't have that in this country. The powers are with the people and with their representatives, who are primarily the legislative body.
But we have some people who think they're monarchs.
Yes, that's what I'm. We have people who think they should be monarchs, and that the Common Council should roll over and play dead, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Well, that's the way the ball bounces. I used to think I was a king in my house, but
until you got crowned. Yeah. Well, I guess we got phones going again. This is WCSS. You're on the air.
Yeah, good morning. How are you today?
Good.
I'm going to make the prediction that in a couple of years we're going to see Jerry DeCasatis run for mayor.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. He's run for.
Now what he's doing is looking out for his boss, but also trying to feather his bed in case he does
He's
decide
still-
to run and does win.
He's run for office several times. He won once, and then I think he was defeated in a primary by Joe Emanuel, wasn't he? Back when he was a Republican? Back when Jerry was a Republican? I think so. He also ran for, I think he ran for a judicial position at one time, and I remember his sign saying, "Amsterdam deserves DeCasatis." He's probably got those in his garage, and maybe it's true.
Well, at least you know
But maybe what he means and what I mean are two different things. Yeah. What'd you say? I'm
Okay,
sorry.
well,
Go ahead.
that's what I see down the road.
All right. I wouldn't be surprised. All right. Thank you. This is WCSS. You're on the air. Wow. Phantom line. Okay. All right. Nobody's on line 2 again. Yeah.
Can't understand that.
I don't either.
We'll have to ask the technical board after we get off the air.
Yeah.
But that's not going to help us today, though.
Not going to help us today. 843-2500 is the number, or Victor 32500 if you're old school. Read a very funny piece this morning about how aides to the Pope were mad at a certain cardinal for not voting for the Pope, so they arranged to have long communion lines in his parish church in Rome by telling the Eucharistic ministers to stay home, and people were complaining about it, and the Pope was denying any knowledge of it. He says, I don't know where I got this reputation as a bully. Maybe it was because I used to be a bouncer. Anyway, obviously a satire on the situation in New Jersey and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey.
The last picture on the TV that I saw of Christie, he looked like he got beat up. He looked.
He's a big guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he looked in rough shape.
I think DeCasatis and I could both get into his pants and there'd still be room left over.
Well, I think he slimmed down a little bit.
Well, he got the band, I think. Didn't he have the band surgery?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah. A lot of people are making excuses for him, and they're saying, well, how come we don't hear about Obama and the IRS and all that? Yeah, all true. The press cover one thing one way and one thing another. But there's absolutely no excuse for Christie. I don't care. To me, it's his denials are not credible. Not credible. And to surround himself with people who think like that. Don't tell me he didn't know that his best friend from grade school doesn't think that way. You
don't think we have people in the city like that?
Of course we do. That's what I'm saying. Do you want one of them to be president of the United States?
No.
We've had that for 5 years now, or whatever it is, and that's enough. That's enough. We don't need any more of the Chicago way or the New Jersey way. My thought.
You're thinking about the Tempascos from
up until about 2 days ago, the FBI had yet to investigate or yet to interview any of the people from the conservative groups that were targeted by the IRS to get their side of the story. Not one. No FBI agent showed. Notwithstanding that this investigation has been going on for a year, the investigation did not include talking to the victims. It's like investigating a burglary without talking to the people who own the house that got burglared. Okay? Is it burglared or burgled? Burgled, I guess.
Burgled.
And now this morning, a few days ago, they announced that the Justice Department is appointing a major Obama contributor as the lead attorney investigating the matter. Oh, come on. So should we be surprised this morning that the leak coming out of the FBI is they just see this as bad management, and there don't appear to be any criminal charges are going to be filed? Well, yeah, right.
Yeah,
Let's see how long anybody lasts in that thuggery, thugocracy, if they bring charges, against the people who are sitting in the White House. And there was all these meetings going on at the White House with the president. But no, it's just
doesn't know anything.
That was just a mistake of management, misinterpretation of the law.
Wow.
Nothing venal here.
What wasn't there something else about in the city in the paper today or yesterday?
Boy, I'm having trouble catching up with the papers because it's at the bottom of the icy driveway, and it's usually a couple days later, and by then I've already read it online, and then we cut out the the games at the back. So,
Oh yeah.
Crosswords and
Crosswords,
all that stuff. All those things. The Sudoku.
This is going to be another rainy day.
Oh, it's miserable out there.
I hope it won't. Well, it is. It's about 30 out there, so as long as it doesn't get too much warmer, because then it'll be real bad for me anyway.
Oh, for the give you bronchitis, you think?
Bronchitis, yeah.
Well, you don't want to get too cold, or it's going to be black ice, and there goes your hip. So, and mine. Wow.
So,
anyway, anybody got anything to say? You got about time for one call to get in here. I've been reading Josephus's Antiquities of the Jewish People. Fascinating book. I picked it up for 50 cents a volume at the library book sale a couple of months ago. It was written, right after the fall of Jerusalem, so maybe about 10 or 15 years later, so about 85 AD or something like that. So he had access, of course, not only to the Jewish scriptures, but also all kinds of other historical documents and histories and memoirs and letters that are no longer existent because over the period of time they deteriorate, they get lost. So his take on everything is terrific, and the writing is just superb. I hate to say it, but it reads better than the Bible, even though it's covering the same ground for the most part. But it also has other stuff added to it, other stories about some of the same people and other people in between, and the politics and the military strategy and the backstabbing that's going on constantly, and boy, I mean, you can take it up to yesterday's news. Really, I mean, the Middle East has been a quagmire for 1,000 years, 5,000 years, however many years there are. So, how come I'm not? I should be hearing the theme. Do you hear the theme?
No, I don't.
What am I doing wrong? It's all on. No. Oh. Because it's not running, that's why. Oh. All right. Okay.
Maybe you don't have the volume up on.
No, it's not running. For some reason. It's not my fault, it's YouTube's. Okay, listen, folks, we've been having a great time here, but this is the end of the show. This is WCSS 1490 in Amsterdam, New York. We'll be back with a podcast on Friday. This show will be up probably tonight sometime. And we'll be back again next Tuesday with more of the show with no name.